You ungrateful brat, I muttered under my breath, watching my son Devin through the living room window. He'd just parked his brand new Audi on my lawn again, ignoring the paved driveway and the flower beds I'd planted with summer last fall. He didn't even glance toward the porch where I sat, sipping my lukewarm coffee, the July sun already hot on my face. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. It was July 4th, Independence Day. Funny how the day felt anything but free. Devin strutted into my house without knocking, phone glued to his ear, talking loudly about some new angel investment he was pitching. I could hear him inside, boasting about leveraging the old man again. My jaw clenched. That old man was me. Frederick, 68 years old, retired HVAC contractor, and the man who'd financed every inch of that brat's education, his first car, his wedding, not to mention the down payment on his McMansion. I stood up slowly, knees aching, and followed him inside. Devin, I called. What brings you here today, besides tearing up my lawn? He gave me that smile, the one that looked pasted on, the one he used when he needed something. Hey, Dad, just dropping by to see how you're doing. You know, checking in. I waited. Actually, he added, rubbing the back of his neck like it was some kind of nervous tick he thought made him look genuine, I could use a little help. Summer and I we're thinking about expanding the business. There it was. Summer wants to open a second boutique downtown, he went on. It's a great opportunity. We just need a little capital to make it happen. Temporary, of course. Just $100,000. I stared at him, the walls of my modest house echoing with silence. $100,000. Like it was lunch money. You do realize, I said slowly, that your mother and I lived in this house for 42 years and never spent that much on anything but your education? He laughed, trying to make it light. Times change, Dad. Gotta spend money to make money. You always said that. No, Devin. I said invest wisely and work hard. But you never listened. I'll think about it. I told him. Come back tomorrow. Bring Summer. He grinned, slapped my shoulder, and walked out, still on his phone before the door even closed behind him. I watched the taillights of his Audi disappear down the street. Tomorrow, I'd give him an answer he wouldn't forget. That night, I opened the safe behind my bookshelf and pulled out the envelope labeled Plan B. It was time to finally finish what I'd started 5 years ago. The envelope was old, yellowed around the edges, and heavy with intent. Inside it were names, documents, and most importantly, the address of a certain couple I'd met years ago, Warren and Ivy. They'd rented my lake cabin during the off-season back in 2020. Humble people, salt of the earth, the kind who asked questions about my life, not just about the thermostat settings. Over 2 weeks, we shared dinners, stories, and something I hadn't felt in years, respect. Ivy would bake pies and bring me slices, while Warren helped me fix the sagging porch step without me even asking. When they left, Ivy hugged me like a daughter, and Warren said, Mr. Frederick, if you ever need anything, you let us know. We don't forget good people. I never forgot them either. In the envelope was a letter I'd written to myself the day they left, a reminder that if my family ever turned their backs completely, if the sacrifices I'd made were spat on, then I'd choose legacy over blood. The next morning, I got up early. I made eggs, bacon, and a fresh pot of coffee. I dressed in my best shirt and slacks, the same ones I wore to my wife's funeral. Devin and Summer were due at 10. When the Audi screeched to a halt, this time on the gravel, thankfully, I was already waiting on the porch. Summer stepped out in high heels, makeup flawless, her eyes scanning the place like it was beneath her. Devin swaggered up with that same phony grin. Morning, Dad, he said. We brought the proposal this time. Good. I nodded, standing up. Let's talk inside. They sat on the couch while I pulled a thick manila folder from the cabinet. Devin looked confused. What's this? My answer, I said. I handed it to him. Inside were copies of my will, dated 2 days ago. A new will. One that left every cent of my estate, including the house, the investments, the lake property, to Warren and Ivy. Devin's face drained of color. Summer's jaw twitched. "What the hell is this?" he barked. "My legacy," I said calmly. "Going to people who still understand gratitude." Summer lunged to grab the folder, but I snatched it back, locking it in my safe as I said, "And there's more. You want to hear what I've planned for Independence Day?" Devin was on his feet, pacing the room like a caged animal. Summer stood frozen, fists clenched, her expensive bag forgotten on the floor. I locked the safe slowly, letting the tension settle like dust in the silence. "You can't do this." Devin snapped. "You're losing it, Dad. You need to talk to someone." "I'm doing exactly what I should have done years ago," I said. "Choosing people who value more than dollar signs." Summer's voice cut through the room like ice. "We've sacrificed for you, Frederick. We visited. We checked on you. We made time. You made time when you needed money." I shot back. "And even then, you made sure I felt like a burden." She crossed her arms, that smug look returning. "Fine. Then we'll contest the will. You're clearly not of sound mind." I chuckled. "I thought you'd say that, which is why I scheduled a psychiatric evaluation last month. Clean bill of health, and it's notarized." Devin sat down heavily, like the wind had been knocked out of him. "You don't get it," he said quietly. "What are people going to think? That your own son wasn't good enough? That you handed your legacy to strangers?" "Exactly," I said, "because that's what happened." The grandfather clock struck 11. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. A message from Ivy. "We're here. Ready when you are." "Come on," I said, grabbing my cane. "Let me show you the second half of your surprise." Outside, a modest sedan pulled up behind Devin's Audi. Warren stepped out in a simple blue shirt and jeans. Ivy wore a sundress, her gray hair tied back. They looked out of place next to the gloss and arrogance of my son's lifestyle. "Warren, Ivy," I greeted them warmly. "Welcome." They hugged me like family. "These are the people getting everything." Summer scoffed. "No," I said, "they're not getting everything. They're earning it, because I've named them not just heirs, but trustees. The cabin, the house, my accounts, it all becomes a foundation for veterans and working families. In my name." Devin went pale. "A charity? A legacy," I corrected. "One built on the values your mother and I lived by." Ivy opened her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. "And we have something to show you too, Devin. You'll want to see what your father asked us to record 5 years ago." Ivy placed the envelope gently on the table. Her hand lingered on it for a moment. Then she looked at me. Her eyes filled with quiet resolve. "We kept our promise, Frederick. Everything you asked for is here." Devin looked at the envelope like it might explode. "What is this? Some kind of stunt?" Ivy's voice was calm. "It's a video. Your father recorded it 5 years ago. He wanted it to be played if this day ever came." Devin's eyes darted between me and the envelope, suspicion etched into every line of his face. "You've been planning this? All this time?" "Not planning," I replied. "Preparing. For the day I realized my own family no longer saw me as a man, just a bank." Warren plugged the USB into my TV. Summer stood stiffly by the window, arms crossed like a fortress. The screen flickered to life. There I was, 5 years younger, sitting in the very same chair I sat in now. My voice echoed through the room. "If you're watching this, Devin, then it means you've finally done what I feared you would. You forgot. You forgot what it took to raise you, to give you every advantage you ever had. You forgot the hands that built your crib, fixed your bike, paid your tuition, and buried your mother." On screen, I paused and held up a framed photo of Devin as a boy, grinning with a missing tooth. "You weren't always like this. Once you were kind, grateful, but somewhere along the way, you started believing you were owed something. That love came with a ledger." I watched my son now, his jaw clenched, his fists shaking. "You may be angry," the video continued, "but anger isn't grief. And what I grieve is the son I lost. The man you became has no room for humility, for compassion, for family. So I made a choice. If you ever proved my fears true, I'd leave my legacy to those who still understand those values." The screen went dark. Silence followed. Thick. Suffocating. You recorded that behind our backs. Summer hissed. Manipulative. No, Ivy said sharply. That's called accountability. Warren stepped forward, holding a second envelope. This is a timeline of every expense your father covered for you. Every loan. Every bailout. It's over $600,000 in 20 years. He even paid your mortgage twice. Devon's face turned beet red. You think this proves something? That I'm some kind of villain? No, I said softly. It proves I gave you everything. And now, I'm giving something to people who won't throw it away. Summer scoffed, grabbing her bag. This isn't over. You're old and bitter, Frederick. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, standing tall. But not today. Devon looked at me one last time. And for a moment, I thought I saw something, shame. Or maybe just fear. They left without another word. That evening, as fireworks lit the sky, Warren handed me a folder marked Press Contacts. Ivy smiled. You said you wanted the world to know. Tomorrow, your legacy goes public. The folder was heavier than I expected. Inside, a meticulous list of media contacts, local news outlets, national business journals, and even a few veterans organizations. Ivy had included letters, press drafts, and a press release that read like a eulogy and a declaration of war rolled into one. You were serious about this, I said, flipping through the pages. Warren gave me a firm nod. You told us your story mattered. We agreed. Now the world will know what kind of man Devon became, and what kind of man you are. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my recliner, the television on mute, the press packet spread across my lap. Devon's face kept appearing in my thoughts, furious, shocked, and most of all, wounded. I'd hoped, in some corner of my mind, that my son would wake up and change. But men like him, I'd come to realize, don't change until there's a cost. Morning came with a chill despite the July sun. Ivy had already arranged interviews. The first was with a local anchor I remembered from the public access channel. She and a cameraman arrived at 9 a.m., professional and smiling. By 9:30, I was sitting on my porch, microphone clipped to my shirt, and the red light on the camera blinking. So, Mr. Frederick, the reporter began, this story has caused quite a stir already. Can you tell us what motivated such a dramatic move, transferring your entire estate to non-relatives? I leaned forward, hands folded. Gratitude, I said, or rather, the lack of it. I spent a lifetime building something, hoping to pass it on, but I won't reward entitlement. Legacy isn't about blood, it's about values. She blinked, clearly not expecting that level of directness. And what about your son? He's alive, I said. Let him build his own kingdom. I'm done financing his delusions. Warren and Ivy stood behind the camera, watching, solemn and supportive. By lunchtime, the video was online. By dinner, it had gone viral. The fallout was immediate. Devon's face showed up on the evening news, not for an award or a business achievement, but for being the son who got cut out of a fortune. His name trended with hashtags like hashtag entitled heir and hashtag Frederick Legacy. Calls came in. Old friends, former employees, veterans who'd never met me but said they cried watching the video. A retired Marine even offered to help manage the charity. The foundation website, which Ivy had quietly built, received nearly 10,000 visitors in a single night. And then, around 11:45 p.m., my phone rang. It was Devon. Dad, he said. Just that. His voice was raw, not angry, not condescending, just broken. I took a breath, about to respond, when another call buzzed in. Unknown number. I answered. A woman's voice said, Mr. Frederick, you don't know me, but I'm Devon's ex-partner, and I think you need to see what he's really been hiding. I hesitated, caught between two calls, the past and the future both pressing into my ear. Devon's voice hung in the air like a thread, ready to snap. But something in the other voice, calm, firm, edged with urgency, pulled me toward the unknown. I'm sorry, I said to my son's call, clicking over. Hello. Thank you, the woman said. My name is Juniper. I worked with Devon, and I used to love him. But I know now he doesn't love anyone who can't help him climb. He's in trouble, Mr. Frederick. Not just with you. I sat back down, heart pounding. What kind of trouble? Fraud, embezzlement, shell companies. It's worse than you think. He's been laundering investor money through fake boutiques registered under Summer's maiden name. I have files, bank records, emails, everything. For a long moment, I said nothing. Then, why are you telling me this? Because I watched your video, she said, and because I needed someone to believe me. I've gone to the authorities, but his charm, it shields him. Until now. She sent the files within minutes. PDFs, screenshots, transaction logs. My fingers trembled scrolling through them. Hundreds of thousands moved through offshore accounts. Most damning was an email titled, "Dad's blind loyalty is our best asset." I forwarded everything to Ivy. By morning, she had it packaged and on its way to a trusted reporter. Devin called again at 6:12 a.m. I picked up. "Dad, I need to talk to you. I know I messed up." "Do you?" He was silent. "Do you know what I found out last night, Devin? About the boutique. About the shell companies. About the lie you built using my name as your foundation." "It's not what it looks like," he began. "It looks like greed. It looks like betrayal. It looks like you were willing to burn me down to fund your empire." "Please," he said, "don't go to the police. We can fix this. I can pay it back." I took a long breath. "No, Devin, you'll explain it to them yourself. This isn't about money anymore. This is about truth." He cursed and hung up. I looked at the quiet street outside my window. The world didn't know yet, but it would. At 9 a.m., Ivy got the call. The journalist at the Tribune wanted to run it all. Feature story. Full investigation. The headline would read, "From Fathersville to Federal Crime. The Collapse of a Golden Son." Ivy turned to me, pale. "Frederick, the feds called. They want to meet. Today." The FBI office in the city was housed in a gray, nondescript building on a quiet street. No signs. No flag. Just a buzzer, camera, and a very serious man in a black suit who checked my ID 3 times. "Mr. Frederick," he said finally, guiding me through security. "Thank you for coming in. I'm Agent Roland. We've been reviewing the files you forwarded. They're extensive." Ivy and Warren were already in the small conference room. She had a manila folder in her lap. He looked as tense as I felt. "We're not asking you to testify yet," Agent Roland continued, "but we need your help confirming the timeline. How long has your son been using your assets and name for business activities?" "Years," I replied. "At least since 2017. I kept records, tax statements, phone logs. I didn't realize what I was looking at until Juniper connected the dots." "Juniper has already met with us separately," he said. "She's prepared to cooperate fully. But this is bigger than just Devin." He opened a laptop and turned it toward us. "Maps, accounts, names. There are at least 9 shell companies tied to Summer and Devin. 2 are based overseas. One of them used your lake house as a listed corporate headquarters." "What?" I choked. "He forged documents," Ivy said, flipping open her folder. "We've confirmed it with the title company. He backdated ownership to make it appear as a commercial entity." The room spun for a moment. That lake house, where my wife and I celebrated our last anniversary. Now a front for money laundering. Agent Roland leaned forward. "Mr. Frederick, this investigation is expanding rapidly. We're pursuing federal charges, wire fraud, tax evasion, conspiracy to defraud investors." I sat back slowly, every bone in my body aching. "What do you need from me?" "Your signature on this affidavit, and your willingness to appear on record, if necessary. Your video gave this case a face, but your voice, that gives it power." I took the pen and signed. By the time I walked out of that building, the sky had gone from blue to storm gray. Thunder rolled low and distant. In the parking lot, Ivy wrapped her arm around mine. "You okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm proud." Warren looked at his phone. "It's up." I turned. He showed me the news site. The headline, The picture of Devin, grainy and glaring, beside a smiling photo of me from the video. The story had over 100,000 shares already. That night, as I tried to sleep, headlights flashed across my window. A car pulled into my driveway. Devin stepped out, rain pouring around him, and he was holding something in his hand, something that glinted in the dark. I stepped quietly to the front window, peeking through the curtain. Devin stood in the downpour, soaked to the bone. His eyes were locked on the house, his chest heaving. In his hand wasn't a weapon, as I'd feared, but crumpled, soggy envelope. I opened the door cautiously. "What do you want, Devin?" He didn't move, didn't speak, just extended the envelope. "It's everything," he said finally, rain cutting down his cheeks like tears. "The truth, the documents, bank accounts, names. Summer, she's gone." Took her cut and ran. I took the envelope slowly. Inside, pages were stuck together with water, but the content was unmistakable: bank statements, transaction logs, a written confession. "Why now?" He looked up hollow-eyed. "Because I've got nothing left. And because the Fed showed up at my office this morning. They know everything." I stepped back, letting him in. He left wet footprints across the floor as he collapsed into the same chair where he once demanded $100,000. "You were right," he whispered, "about everything. You knew what you were doing." He nodded slowly. At first it was just shortcuts. Then it was keeping up appearances. Then it was too late. I set the envelope on the table, not saying a word. He leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice barely audible. "They're going to arrest me, aren't they?" "Most likely." Thunder boomed outside, echoing in the silence. "You going to testify against me?" I looked at him for a long time. My son, my blood, and yet a stranger. "I'll tell the truth. That's all." He nodded. It was the first honest gesture I'd seen from him in years. "You know what hurts most," he said. "It's not the money. It's that I turned into everything you warned me about." We sat in silence for several minutes. "You can stay here tonight," I said eventually. "But tomorrow, you turn yourself in, with or without me." He didn't argue, just gave the faintest of nods. Upstairs, I lay awake listening to the storm. I didn't know if this was redemption, or just a lull before the crash. But I knew one thing. The legacy I had reclaimed would never again be for sale. The next morning, I came downstairs to an empty chair and a missing envelope. Devin was gone, and on the kitchen table sat a single note. "I'm going to fix this my way." The kitchen felt colder than usual. I stared at the note for a long time, rereading the words. "I'm going to fix this my way." Fix what? His reputation? The criminal charges? Or just his guilt? The envelope with his confession and evidence gone. I called Ivy immediately. Within minutes, she and Warren were at my doorstep. We went over everything. What Devin said, what he left, the timing. He might try to disappear, Warren warned. We should alert Agent Rowland. I nodded. We sent a message with everything we knew. But before the agents could even respond, the news hit. A video. Online. Viral within the hour. It was Devin. He stood in front of a courthouse, holding the very envelope he'd taken. Drenched again, but this time not from rain, from sweat, from fear. And maybe from clarity. "My name is Devin," he began, "and I'm the man in all those headlines. The ungrateful son. The fraud. The failure." His voice cracked. "My father gave me everything, and I abused it. I lied. I stole. I built a career on a foundation of deceit. And I hurt people, investors, friends, and most of all him." He looked into the camera. Direct. Broken. "Today, I'm turning myself in. Not because anyone forced me, but because I want to be worthy of the name I carry." Then, as if rehearsed, he turned and walked into the courthouse. The clip cut off. My phone exploded with calls and messages. Reporters. Friends. Even strangers. I sat down slowly, numb. Ivy turned to me. "He did it. He really did." Warren added, "That video changes everything. Public opinion. The case. Even the foundation. People are going to want to help now." I didn't know what to feel. Relief. Grief. pride. But deep down, one thing was clear. He may have walked in as a criminal, but he walked out for now as a man. The next day, I received a letter. No return address. Inside was a photo of me and Devin, fishing at the lake when he was 10, and a short note. He wasn't always lost. Neither were you. I held the photo for a long time. It was worn at the edges, like it had been carried for years. Me in overalls, holding a fishing rod. Devin beside me, no more than 10, holding up a small bass with both hands, pride beaming from his gap-toothed grin. The handwriting on the back of the note was unfamiliar. Not Ivy's, not Devin's, just those words. He wasn't always lost. Neither were you. I brought it to Ivy. She studied it carefully. Anonymous. Seems that way. But why send it now? Warren chimed in. Maybe someone wants you to remember. This story, it's not just about the fall. It's about the climb. I nodded, unsure if I was comforted or haunted. Later that afternoon, I visited the courthouse myself. Devin had been placed in holding while awaiting charges. I asked to see him. He was behind glass, in a beige jumpsuit, looking more like a boy than a man for the first time in years. He picked up the phone. You came. I needed to. I saw the foundation page this morning, he said. You renamed it. The Frederick House. I nodded. Because that's what it is. A house. Not a vault. Not a bank. A home for those who need it. He wiped his eyes. I want to help. When I get out, whenever that is, I want to make it right. With real work. Honest work. We'll see, I said. One step at a time. A pause. Dad, he added, voice cracking. I'm sorry. It wasn't everything, but it was something. When I left the courthouse, a reporter was waiting. She asked for a comment. Just one thing, I said. Sometimes, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you help rebuild. That quote made the front page the next day. By week's end, donations to the Frederick House had tripled. We were partnering with 2 veteran centers and setting up scholarship funds for working-class kids. And still, I couldn't shake the photo. Who sent it? Why now? Was there more to this story than even I understood? That evening, as I sorted old boxes in the attic, I found an old tape recorder. On it, a cassette labeled in the same handwriting as the note. Just one word, listen. I turned the cassette over in my hands. The label was faded, but the word was clear. Listen. My fingers hesitated over the play button. It had been years since I'd touched that recorder. What secrets could still be hiding in my own attic? I pressed the button. A burst of static, then a voice. Familiar. Deep. Calm. Frederick, if you're hearing this, I suppose the day has come. The day you feared. Maybe even the day you hoped for. My breath caught. It was my brother, Sage. Sage had died 12 years ago. Heart attack. We hadn't spoken much in the final years, not since the fight. Over Devin. I don't know if we'll ever mend things. The recording continued. But I need you to know something. I saw it coming. The way Devin looked at you. Like a prize to win, not a father to cherish. I saw it and I stayed quiet. That was my failure. I leaned closer, heart pounding. You always gave, and he always took. But you loved him anyway. That's what I couldn't understand. I was jealous, I think. I never had a son. Never had anyone to disappoint me the way he disappointed you. There was a long pause. Then, but maybe he'll surprise you. And if he ever does, if he ever really falls, you need to know it wasn't your fault. You were the best man I ever knew, even if I never said it. I stopped the tape. Tears ran down my face before I even realized. Ivy found me like that, the recorder still playing softly in the background. Sage, she whispered, recognizing the voice. I nodded. She sat beside me, saying nothing. He saw it, I murmured, before I did. But you're the one who changed it, she said. You made the choice to stop the cycle. Downstairs, the phone rang. Warren called up. Frederick, you've got to see this. We rushed down. On the news, Devin's attorney. A plea deal had been accepted. Reduced sentence in exchange for full cooperation and restitution. More than that, Devin had agreed to forfeit all his remaining assets to fund the Frederick house. I stared at the screen, stunned. He was really doing it. Not just apologizing, but sacrificing. Later that night, I received one last envelope in the mail. No stamp, no address, just my name. Inside was a newspaper clipping from 1979 and a photo of Sage holding a newborn baby. The back read, "There's more to this family than you know." The photograph was old, edges curled, corners yellowing. Sage stood in a hospital gown, cradling a newborn wrapped in a blue blanket. The smile on his face was one I hadn't seen since we were boys. Not a smirk, not a front. Genuine joy. The clipping beside it was from a local paper. Local craftsman becomes father at 38. Dated May 4th, 1979. I'd never heard about this. Sage never spoke of a child. I sat back in my chair, the weight of years pressing down. Who was this child? And why had Sage kept it from me? I called Ivy and Warren. Within an hour, we were all at the dining room table, staring at the photo. He had a child, Ivy whispered, and never said a word. Warren nodded slowly. We need to find out who they are. We scanned the article. No mother's name. No mention of what happened after the birth. Only a brief sentence. Sage declined further comment on the child's mother. Something about the whole thing didn't sit right. The next day, I drove to the county records office. Ivy had made a list of questions, and Warren brought his laptop. We combed through birth records for May 1979, looking for any child born under Sage's name. Nothing. No registry. No documentation. He must have used a different name, Ivy guessed. Or the child was adopted. And then we found it. A single note in a faded ledger. Male child, relinquished custody, no paternal claim filed. The mother's name was redacted. The child had vanished into the system. I felt a coldness in my bones I hadn't known since the day I buried Sage. Back home, I couldn't let it go. I pulled every photo I had from those years, searching for clues. And then I found it. A picture from a summer barbecue in '83. Sage, standing by the grill. And beside him, a boy. Dark hair, green eyes. Same crooked smile as Devin. I flipped it over. On the back, written in pen, Sage and R. 1983. R, I whispered. Who are you? Ivy called out from the other room. Frederick, you need to see this. Someone just donated $50,000 to the foundation. The name on the receipt? Roland Sage. I rushed into the study where Ivy stood frozen by the computer screen. The transaction confirmation glowed on the monitor. $50,000 wired to the Frederick house from a donor named Roland Sage. It has to be him, I muttered. R from the photo. The boy. Ivy clicked on the donor profile. The address listed was in Montana, tied to a small woodworking business. The bio? Minimal. But the email, roland@richcraft.org, was real. Should we write to him? Ivy asked. No, I said. I'll call. My hands shook as I punched in the number listed on the business website. 3 rings. 4. Then, this is Roland. His voice, deeper than I expected. Calm, measured. Roland, I said carefully. My name is Frederick. Frederick Thompson. I believe you knew my brother Sage. Silence. Then a breath. Yes, I did. He was your father, wasn't he? Another pause. Then yes, but I only knew for certain when I was 16. By then, he was already sick. He left a journal. Said if anything ever happened to him, to find you. My throat tightened. Why didn't you come sooner? I tried, Roland said, but you were deep in grief. I saw the funeral from afar. I didn't want to intrude. Then time passed, and I didn't know how to reach out. I swallowed hard. You're not intruding now. Roland, your family. We talked for over an hour. He told me about growing up in foster homes, about discovering Sage's letters hidden in a box his final foster mother had kept, how those letters led him to build a business by hand, like Sage, to give quietly, help quietly. I watched your video last month, he said, and I cried, because you sounded like the man Sage described in his letters. The man I always hoped I'd meet. By the time we ended the call, we had made a plan. Roland was coming to visit. Next week. There's something poetic about it, Ivy said that night. Just as you lose one son to the system, another returns from it. I nodded, heart full in a way I hadn't felt in years. But deep inside, I still had questions. As I tucked away the photo of Sage and the boy, I noticed something I hadn't before, an emblem stitched onto the child's shirt. A crest. Military. Ivy gasped. That's not just any crest. That's from a classified base. And that changes everything. I took the photo to the kitchen table, where Ivy and Warren sat. The emblem on the boy's shirt was unmistakable now that I'd seen it clearly. A triangular crest, silver and black, with a falcon in flight above a shield. Ivy was already typing furiously on her tablet. There it is, she said, turning the screen to show us. Project Redcrest, a now-declassified training program from the 1980s, run by a remote military facility in Nevada. Special operations, psychological conditioning, elite candidate testing. Very few civilians ever saw it. I stared at her. You're saying Sage's son was in that program? It's possible, she said. Or at least that Sage had some connection to it. There's a chance Roland was raised in a military-affiliated home. That could explain the lack of public records. Warren looked uneasy. If that's true, Frederick, we may be dealing with something deeper than forgotten family. The implications churned in my mind. Why would Sage hide that? Why send a child into a program like that? Unless it wasn't his choice. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch, watching the stars, clutching the photo. Roland arrived 2 days earlier than expected. His truck rolled up in the late morning. He stepped out, taller than I imagined, broad-shouldered, son Warren. He walked up the steps slowly, then held out his hand. Uncle Frederick, he said. Roland, I said, gripping his hand tight. Welcome home. We sat inside, talked over coffee. Ivy showed him the photo, the crest, the article. He studied them in silence. I saw that emblem once, he said, on a patch my foster father used to wear. He worked for the DOD, would disappear for months at a time, said he was running a camp, never gave details. He paused. When I asked about my past, he always changed the subject, but one day he said something odd. Your old man tried to pull you out, but they wouldn't let go. My blood ran cold. Sage had fought to keep his son, and lost. Why didn't he tell me? I whispered. Roland gave me a sad smile. Maybe he was protecting you. Maybe he knew too much. We sat in silence, the house heavy with memories. Then Roland said, There's someone else. A man who knew my foster father. He reached out recently, said he had files, things Sage sent him. He handed me a business card. Juniper Grove Archives. Confidential consulting. We're meeting him tomorrow. That night, I dreamed of Sage again, this time standing beside a file cabinet, holding a folder labeled only one word, contingency. The morning was overcast, a heavy mist lingering over the fields as we drove toward Juniper Grove. It wasn't a real town, more a patch of road marked by a rusted gas pump and an old farmhouse turned archive center. Ivy drove while I sat up front, Roland in the back, silent and focused. The man we were meeting was named Vernon. According to Roland, Vernon had worked intelligence back in the 80s, now semi-retired, a gatekeeper to forgotten knowledge. When we arrived, he was already waiting on the porch, tall, wiry, with a shock of white hair and aviator glasses. You must be Frederick, he said, shaking my hand with a firm grip. And this must be Roland, spitting image of your father. Roland said nothing, but nodded. His eyes never left Vernon. Inside, the house smelled of cedar and old paper. Boxes were stacked along the walls, each labeled by year and project. Vernon led us to a room in the back, where a single file sat atop a wooden desk. This, he said, tapping the folder, was meant for you, directly, from Sage. He gave it to me before he died, with instructions. Only give it to Frederick if the past comes knocking. My hands trembled as I opened it. The first page was a letter. in Sage's handwriting. Frederick. If you're reading this, it means something from my past has returned to yours. I never wanted this to touch you, but I couldn't bury it forever. Roland was taken from me under false pretenses. They said it was for his safety, that he had potential. I fought it. I lost. I spent years trying to find him again. When I did, I knew he'd need more than just answers. He'd need protection. There's a contingency plan, a fund, a document trail, and a list of names. People who knew, people who helped, and people who wanted buried. Be careful. Your brother, Sage *. Behind the letter was a schematic, a map of the Red Crest facility. Marked in red ink, 2 names, Wells and Mara. Wells was my foster father's superior, Roland said quietly. He always spoke in riddles. Mara, I only heard that name once. She visited when I was 9, brought gifts. Her voice made my skin crawl. Vernon sat down across from us. Mara's still out there. She runs a consultancy now, but she was one of the minds behind Red Crest. If Sage had dirt on her, she'd have reason to keep Roland hidden. I felt a chill. And if she finds out he's resurfaced? She won't like it, Vernon said grimly. Which is why this, he handed us a second folder, needs to go public. Everything. Ivy flipped through it, documents, tapes, transcripts. Proof that Red Crest had overstepped legal boundaries, used psychological tactics on minors, covered it all up with shell foundations. This is bigger than legacy, Ivy whispered. This is exposure. Roland stood. We take it to the press. All of it. There's one more thing, Vernon said. He pulled out a sealed envelope. Sage left this for Roland. He said, give this to my son when he's ready to decide who he wants to be. Roland took it with shaking hands. As we stepped outside, our phones buzzed simultaneously. A message. No sender. Just one line. Stop digging or we'll finish what Sage started. We stood in silence on the porch, phones still glowing with the anonymous threat. Rain began to fall, slow and cold, like the warning itself had summoned it. They know we're close, Ivy said, scanning the tree. Roland opened the envelope Vernon had given him. Inside was a single key, a photo of a safety deposit box, and a note. Truth isn't safe, but it's yours now. We didn't waste time. The next morning, we drove to the bank listed on the photo, an old institution in a quiet corner of the state. They brought the box to a private room. Inside were cassette tapes, a small black notebook, and 2 photographs, one of Sage with a much younger Mara, the other of a document bearing the Red Crest seal. I flipped through the notebook. It was a ledger, evidence of payments, experiments, names of children, names crossed out, red ink underlining specific entries. Roland removed. Transferred. Renamed. Roland stared at the pages, his fists clenched. They erased me. We knew what we had to do. That afternoon, with Ivy's help, we scanned every page, uploaded the tapes, and sent a full digital file to every major media outlet, legal advocacy group, and congressional office we could reach. No more waiting. No more secrets. By evening, it had begun. Headlines screamed across the internet. Project Red Crest exposed, illegal conditioning of minors under federal cover. Talk shows picked it up. Politicians issued statements. Investigations reopened. The FBI contacted me directly to confirm the document's authenticity. Even international outlets reached out. And Mara, she vanished. Her consultancy shuttered overnight. Her assets frozen. Rumors flew South America, private islands, burned passports. But she was gone. Roland stood on my porch as the sun set that evening, watching kids in the neighborhood light sparklers, laughing in the street. Do you think Sage would be proud? He asked. I placed a hand on his shoulder. He'd be proud of you. Devin called the next morning. I saw the news, he said. You really did it. You buried the past, brought it back to life, then buried it again on your own terms. It wasn't just me, I said. It was Roland. It was Ivy, Warren, even you. I want to help, he said. When I get out, I want to work at the foundation. I want to build something real. I didn't promise him anything, but I didn't say no. The Frederick house grew. With Roland managing operations and Ivy overseeing legal affairs, we expanded to 4 states, helped hundreds of families. Devin joined us in year 2, quiet, humble, changed. And me? I sat on the porch every July 4th and watched the fireworks with my new family. A family that chose to be good, that earned their place. And somewhere, I hoped, Sage was watching too. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.